Hello ladies and gentlemen, Willie here. Is multiboxing a bad thing for classic World of Warcraft, or just WoW in general? I think this has come into a bit more of a spotlight recently since we've had so much more visibility on the subject from the likes of Twitch live streams. This has jumped the discussion up about this subject quite a bit, and I was asked about it recently myself in the comments of a video, so let's take a look at this in a bit more detail. So, multiboxing. I'm going to be saying that a lot this video, eh? The idea of running several characters on the same machine, or sometimes many machines, logged in on different accounts that use various software and macros to imitate keystrokes across different characters. Essentially, one key press could lead to as many characters as you want, all performing one action, like 5 mages pressing Arcane Explosion or Pom Pyro, well, on a basic level anyway. When you say the word multiboxing, some people start throwing around words like botting, hacking, scripting, cheating, people ruining the game for their own selfish ends. They're pretty strong accusations, so let's talk about it a bit, shall we? Multiboxing wasn't something necessarily new to WoW either, finding roots in multi-user dungeons or mods, the spiritual predecessor to MMOs. However, it did gain a lot of traction throughout the duration of World of Warcraft, especially vanilla. With this new game taking over the whole market was a ripe ground to test multiboxing and see just what was possible. Multiboxing isn't something you just pick up either, but a learning experience over a long period of time. Equally, most software is paid for in addition to all of your WoW accounts that you need to get things going. On a basic level, there's duplicating actions, but you need to keep track of all your characters, decide on how many accounts and what setup. What do you actually want to multibox for? Individual movements or macros for certain characters, all these matter so much more on PvP servers, where despite having the advantage at the outset, what happens if one person wants to mess with you? What happens if you keep getting reset or divided up? Once you get your head around it though, it certainly has some potential which no singular player can match across so many different areas of the game. Many people opt to go for 5 characters once they have some experience under their belt. It's a more natural progression to gradually start at 2 and then work your way up to as many as you need. Essentially, the more the better in terms of farming gold, PvP and just the utility you can carry around. In retail, many changes over the years have made multiboxing more and more convenient, such as being able to loot every single mob at once in a pile, legacy content such as mounts or pet farming being lootable on each character too. Additionally, many quests can be taken advantage of to complete in a couple of minutes, as each character's action counts together. And don't forget that nowadays, if you interact with a profession item like a herb, it doesn't despawn once one character uses it. All of your accounts can take advantage of this. This makes gold farming on retail very fast, and if you roll on a high population server, those top end guilds are going to go through materials like mad. Many large multiboxers will use retail for this reason to farm gold to buy WoW tokens without ever having to actually fork out any of their real money to Blizzard. And since we don't have WoW tokens on Classic, which are basically a subscription for a month in return for gold, it makes it a very interesting option. How about the advantages it gives you in Classic though? Well, questing you may think would be way faster, but that's not always the case. Sure, when you have a kill 20 of something mob, running several characters is going to be great, but what about when you need to loot 10 items and you have to kill easily over 100 mobs to get it done before you move on top of sharing all the XP between so many different accounts? Those food, water and mount costs aren't going to be very easy to offset. In dungeons, multiboxing is pretty huge. With the right setup, farming prebis or some decent loot becomes easy. You could tank, heal and DPS all by yourself. No need to worry about spamming for a tank for 20 minutes, only to find out they want to reserve everything that drops, including your firstborn child. Biggest of all the advantages though has to be access to the gold farms that you unlock. These are made so much more efficient by having all those different characters. Dire Morley's jump runs with herbalism and mining, taking groups to farm Eye of Shadows or mature blue dragon sinew, massive pools and black rock depths, farming Frostmaul Echo. The list goes on, and I'm sure I've only touched the surface as to what is possible with bringing along a multibox. How about the disadvantages though? Well, as mentioned earlier, there is a cost involved, with each character needing to fork out $15 per month per character to get them in the game. Then you need the actual software to run all of your accounts, which is often paid for, and don't forget you're going to need a decent PC to handle all these applications running at the same time, though the sub fee as mentioned can be offset by retail farming. Second's got to be the learning curve. It's pretty steep depending on your goals. Many will start off on a PvE server whilst they learn the ropes and move to PvP once they're a bit more capable and feel as though they're able to react to many different situations that are thrown at you. All in all, it's not just something you install and go, it's something that you need to have a real interest in doing long term. Multibox Multiboxing Classic is actually very interesting because, well, we're 15 years from when it used to be, 15 years to improve upon software available for those interested, and to perfect the best ways of getting your head around what it takes to successfully multibox. You may think, what about private servers though? It's no secret that thousands and thousands of people have been reliving Classic over again on their own terms well before release. Well, funnily enough, many private servers didn't allow multiboxing. Reason being is that your accounts are free on private servers, many operated under donations to the admins, not a paywall to gain entry. Who's going to try out a new server without any credentials if you have to pay in the first instance? Not many people is who. Free accounts would allow people to go wild with as many characters as their PC can handle really. This is where the scope for grief from the activity could have come in from ganking, holding farming spots, and generally making areas of the game just for them and difficult to hold for anybody else, as well as making PvP servers who has the biggest box. There were servers that allowed it too, within restrictions of course, it's just that many private server players ended up with a pretty hostile opinion on the matter. Moving over to Classic and Blizzard now. Whilst you may have seen how fast Blizzard are to ban account sharing in any way, if you want to multibox they are all okay with that, but they don't actively support the tools required to multibox. It falls within their end user license agreement that you're still actively controlling all the characters, be it through third party software, and therefore it's fair game. They don't consider the duplication of actions automation in this case, as at the end of the day, the duplication only happens because a person is pressing a key. If a program were to cause that to happen without human interaction, that's where we start crossing the line into illegal things like botting. And let's not forget the old $15 a month either, shall we? That's a pretty big incentive for Blizzard to give this the thumbs up. And this isn't some ActiBliz cash grab kind of thing either. Multiboxing has always been fair play for Blizzard ever since the days of vanilla. It's seen as an alternative and valid form of gameplay by the company, and frankly, not having it in Classic would have been a pretty dramatic change that would have alienated some of the most hardcore players from the franchise. You also have to take into account what multiboxing is going to be used for. Whilst multiboxing in itself is fine, harassment or serious and continuous disruption to another player isn't, and your gateway to that kind of activity is infinitely easier when you're running several characters about, but at the end of the day you're only shooting yourself in the foot and losing an enormous amount of time and potentially money doing this. So we've taken a look at the advantages and disadvantages for the player, as well as what Blizzard thinks on the subject. How about the impact on the game now? Coming off the last point, which was more of a negative, let's look at the harmful activities other than just griefing for the fun of it. You know how many people opt into dungeon cleaving all the way to 60 as one of the more efficient ways to get XP? Imagine doing that with a multibox as a singular person, and then when you have those 60, shipping them off to be sold, especially on multiple machines, through ways of hiding your location. You can bet that many of the sold accounts aren't just made by a solo regular player and are through multibox dungeon farms. And for those with more money than time, that's a very attractive option to get your hands on a fresh 60. Apart from selling accounts, there is gold, and with some methods having up to 4 digits per hour with some luck, you can bet that once again, much of the gold moving hands online is obtained through multiboxing. On top of this, it can take only one person farming something like crazy to crash your server's market, even on a high population server, if they're getting impatient with selling due to the sheer volumes of items they're bringing in. Finally, World PvP. Now this one is a little bit of a grey area for me, where there's both good and bad. Let's be real here, World PvP is not fair. It's not an honourable duel where you wait for your opponent to get to full health, do a nice bow emote and say good day sir, and then you begin fighting. The majority of World PvP is taking out people with less health, outnumbering or out-leveling people. And yes, it sucks dying like this, but a multiboxer running up to you and hitting you with 5 chain lightnings isn't really that much different from this in my opinion. It can only become an issue when they start abusing the advantage repeatedly, and that's where they can risk themselves becoming labelled a harasser and get hit by action from Blizzard. And for most people, it's just not worth the risk. Honestly, multiboxers and World PvP are content. I think I've been one-shot about 2 times that I remember since starting playing on Gehennas, and both times you just kind of laugh about it. I'd rather this than Undead Rogue 56B kills me in a 30-second stun lock. You can try and run in and AoE them down, test their capabilities, just have a bit of fun with it, and if you're ranking, you can bet you want that juicy 5 times honor packet running about. It's something more of a challenge. Even just sitting in Ironforge or Orgrimmar, seeing a bunch of people lined up is pretty cool to see. I always check them out. Having a line of people dancing or using toys or just having fun with it is really cool as well. And I feel like this side of it, sort of an alternative form of entertainment within the game, is often overlooked. And you can bet that Blizzard keeps a tab on those multiboxing, especially if you're using the more commercial software. The line from personal entertainment to personal profit from it can be pretty quickly passed. And even if you're just trading a large amount of gold or items between your own accounts, it could risk risk a flag from Blizzard on gold trading like activities and lead you to having difficulties down the line. I don't think solely the argument of multiboxing is Blizz-like is enough to warrant its existence in Classic, though it does certainly go a long way to do so, but it's something that should be able to stand on its own merits apart from that. It's a funny subject and one that I feel divides people into either they don't mind it, or they think it's literally the worst thing in the world. Personally, I'm in the former. I think the content it brings into the game for the boxer, as well as those around him, outweighs any negatives, and at the end of the day, most of the harmful gameplay that you can do with your advantage will only lead you to getting banned. I do, however, think it's quite clearly that something is easily abusable, and no doubt has significant impact on the online sale of WoW services, particularly accounts and golds. No doubt these markets would exist without multiboxing, and that the prices would rise to accommodate. It does, however, make greater volumes accessible, which is a bad thing and the key negative aspect to the activity. Overall, Blizzard allowing it has to warrant some supervision in some way, which will lead to your average multiboxer having to be a bit more careful than a player would normally when just playing the game within their limits. So those are my thoughts. How about yourself? Any impressions with multiboxing? Let me know, and as always, I hope you guys enjoyed, and I will see you in the next one. If you like what you see, give the video a like and subscribe, as there's plenty more to come. As always, thank you all so much for watching. Take care. Bye.